regarding the quantum theory. This theory claims not only that energy is within matter, but that it exists in bundles. Its very basis has no relation to nature anywhere, nor to the workings of polarity, the great divider, nor to the electric wave. One part of the theory describes certain microscopic resonators embedded within particles of matter to make it vibrate. These are set in motion, according to a recent article in Scientific America, by light entering through holes which must be of just the right size in every case to cause the vibrations to release these bundles of energy. Nothing could be more fantastic nor more of a travesty of nature, for the only cause of vibration is polarity. The only vibrations there are in nature are these interchanges between the two opposites of polarity, which extend from a Fulcrum's zero to a plus and minus zero. These are the destination points between which motion oscillates in sequences of reversals. The reversals are the pulse beat of nature. Regarding singly charged particles, just as it is impossible to polarize the positive end of a bar magnet without simultaneously polarizing the negative, or to depolarize one end separately, or to create a battery of one cell without simultaneously creating its opposite cell, or to create one hemisphere of a planet without simultaneously creating the other, or to lift one end of a lever without simultaneously lowering the other, or to deep freeze without generating heat, so it is impossible for man or nature to produce singly charged negative, positive, or neutral particles. There are no negatively charged particles in this universe. Negative electricity discharges, while positive electricity charges. The negative depolarizing force functions in the opposite manner and direction to the positive polarizing force. Positive electricity produces the condition of gravity by compression, which means charging or generating. Negative electricity produces the condition of radiation by expanding, which means discharging or degenerating. It is impossible for one of the polarized conditions to be present without the other, for each opposite borns its mate and interchanges with it until each one becomes the other. All particles of matter in the universe are alike in one respect, whether that particle is an invisible electron, planet, or sun. That universal attribute is the fact that each has two opposing hemispheres, which are under the control of two opposing balance poles. One pole controls its charge, and the other its discharge. Together they keep the universe in balance. As there is not one law for microscopic mass and another for colossal mass, let us consider the Earth as a typical example, keeping in mind the fact that colossal mass is but many small particles. The Earth is being constantly charged into higher potential by the centrifugal multiplying force of positive electricity, which polarizes and vitalizes. Incoming sun rays to Earth are a good example. Conversely, the Earth is being constantly discharged into lower potential by the centrifugal dividing force of negative electricity, which depolarizes and devitalizes. Witness outgoing Earth rays. Both are the same rays. They have but changed their polarities by reversing their outward direction of expansion to an inward direction of contraction. When sun rays leave their cathode in the sun, they are negative particles or vortices of motion which we call matter. Their polarity constantly changes until they change their direction at the equator between Sun and Earth. They then become centrifugally contracting vortices instead of centrifugally expanding ones. After passing their equator, their polarity is positive instead of negative. Their positive charges increase as they near their anode, the Earth. The very reverse effect takes place in respect to radiation leaving the Earth, which is now the cathode for the projected vortice of spiral motion, and the Sun is its anode. The simultaneous charge and discharge of every particle or mass of particles is repeated sequentially in wave pulsations, which constitute the universal heartbeat. Every particle in the universe breathes in and out in polarization-depolarization sequences. As there is no exception to this law, it cannot be possible for nature or man to create particles which are singly charged. Science has listed about 20 of these separately charged particles and claims for them different attributes, just as the elements are presumed to be different substances with different attributes. The time has come when we must think of matter in a new way. Our old concept of substance and of the attributes of substance, which we call matter, must radically change. That revolutionary change is what I now wish to talk about. The preceding pages are but a preparation for a complete transformation of thought concerning matter. Future science must completely revolutionize its concept of matter. For ages, man has thought of matter as being substance. Posterity must learn to think of matter as motion only. The senses of man have for such long eons told him of the many different substances which compose the universe. Therefore, it will not be easy for him to make this transition. The granite rock, the iron bar, the steel ship, and the many other substances which hurt him by too rough a contact, or burn him with their heat, or refresh him with their cool wetness, or nourish him with the meat of their bodies, or lend their bodies to him for the fashioning of countless things of his desiring, all these many things of seeming substance of earths and seas have told his senses of his apparently substantial body. They have told him that matter is substance and that it is real. It unquestionably exists. Objectivity of matter is the most obvious fact of the universe to man's senses. All down the ages, the mystics have affirmed that the universe is but illusion, and that there is no life, intelligence, or substance in matter. Abstract affirmations, however, are not convincing to either scientists or laymen whose senses have taught him otherwise. Unfortunately for the world, those who speak abstractly and affirm without being able to explain dynamically have been listened to with ears which could not hear that which had no meaning for them. The time has now come, however, to give meaning to the inspired mystics and poets who have been illumined with inner knowledge, which they found impossible to put into words for man. The foundation principle of the universe is utterly simple, but the simplest of stories is the hardest to tell. It will not be easy for either the layman or the scientist to make the transition in his thinking from a universe of real and dependable substance to a substanceless thought wave universe of motion, whose sole purpose is the recording of thought imagining. The result of such motion is to create a make-believe universe in which both substance and form are simulated by as many states of motion as there are simulated substances and forms in matter. The scientist has not only divided matter into 92 different kinds of substances, but he has divided these 92 substances into atomic systems made up of many more minute particles of somewhere around 20 primal substances. Those he calls electrons, protons, neutrons, antineutrons, antiprotons, photons, gravitons, mesons, cabomesons, positive mu mesons, negative mu mesons, positive phi mesons, negative phi mesons, neutral phi mesons, tau mesons, positive V particles, negative V particles, neutral V particles, and so on, without an end as yet in sight of the many non-existent substances. They so convincingly act their parts in producing the mirages of substance in this universe that the greatest scientists of this world have not the slightest suspicion that the many different substances of matter are but different states of motion. The reason for this great confusion is because scientific observers started out with the wrong premise from the very beginning, with an unwarranted belief given to the evidence of their senses. Science, ever since Democritus, has been searching for an irreducible unit of matter which would account for the universe. It never seems to have occurred to any of the great thinkers of the ages that creation could not create itself, just as the picture does not paint itself but must have its source in the painter, or as the poem cannot write itself but must also have its creator poet. So likewise must this master drama of cause and effect have its creator playwright, who conceived the ideal of creation and gave it form. One might as reasonably scrape to the bottom of Leonardo da Vinci's painting, The Last Supper, to find its primal pigment and its first brushstroke, in the hope of finding the ideal which the painting manifests, and its creator as well. As neither the ideal of creation nor the creator of it are in the pigment which painted the universal masterpiece, and likewise as the primal pigment and the first brushstroke were not the cause of the picture, one might search for countless ages without finding that for which he sought. Having thus started out with a wrong premise regarding matter, and having passed on these wrong premises and assumptions through generations of teachings which have become traditions to their inheritors, it is not strange that the conclusions of science are as invalid as the premises upon which they have been founded. Science is still searching for the primordial life principle in matter as eagerly as it has searched for the primordial substance from which other substances extend. The time has come in man's mental unfoldment where he must recognize that all ideal is eternal in the zero equilibrium of the still magnetic light of universal mind, which is God, and that ideal is but manifested in motion of body forms by polarized cycles. These appear from the eternal zero and must disappear into that zero in order that they may reappear in endless cycles. The layman, as well as the scientist, must think differently and express his thoughts with a greater understanding of natural law. The layman, for example, who says John is dead and thinks of John as being John's body, is not expressing the facts of natural law. John is not John's body. John is not dead, nor can he die. The eternal John is an ideal of mind. His depolarized body is but one end of a longer cycle than the cycle of his incoming-outgoing breath, but not one whit different. His breathing will repolarize in another second, but his depolarized body will take a longer period, just as the depolarized oak will repolarize again from its zero in its seed.